All right, welcome everybody. Welcome to Dissecting Tyrone, the podcast. This is our first official episode. The first one is about to be in the books. We kind of went back and forth about the topic, what to talk about. I did put a post on Facebook and asked people about topics that they wanted to talk about, and over it kept coming back to dating. Dating is rough outside. It is rough out here.
What they say is piss in the pool.
Man, there's piss in the pool. There's mud. There's more than piss in the pool.
Right. It's like Kellum.
Man,
some
high
stuff
dive.
floating around.
Going off the high dive straight into the piss in the pool.
Right.
So we figured the first episode would be about dating. You know, both of us are newly single. I'll speak for myself first. I was married for 12 years. And recently got divorced and been back out here, and it's rough, you know, Brandon.
Right. So yeah, I've been single for roughly around 4 years, give or take. So I was married for 10 years, in a relationship that relationship for right around 15 years, and like I said, now we back, we outside a little bit.
Man, so hey, the biggest question: what is the hardest part about getting back out there?
I think for me it was just, I don't know, the trust, because you go through certain things, you have certain experiences with a person, and that person that you've known for so long, and then maybe things end on terms that maybe you didn't want them to end on, and now you have to go out and meet somebody new, and red flags just start popping up, or you see something that you really don't like, and it's just like, oh man, like, is this really for me? I don't know. So, but you have to get past that, and start having that level of trust again, and just seeing people for who they are, and not trying to judge or put some type of stigma on someone, because what you may have experienced in one relationship doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to experience it with this person. So,
Definitely. For me, I wouldn't say trust. For me, I was actually, I don't want to say excited, because, you know, it's not an excited thing to go through a divorce, but I'd been unhappy for a while. I think we both had been unhappy for a while, and I was looking forward to finding happiness. And I initially met a young lady that was everything to me. I was like, boy, this girl is it. And there was a little bit of drama that happened from the ex and different things that occurred, and so me and the young lady we stopped dating, and after that, I kept looking for that same type of connection, and I think that was the hardest part for me, is finding somebody that you connect with, because the vibe and the connection is big to me.
no, I would agree, and I would probably go back and say, for me, there was a point towards the end of my marriage that I never experienced before. I never forget, I was, maybe we had like a heated discussion, really wasn't any arguments, but just a heated discussion. And I remember jumping in the shower, getting ready to do something. And then I started hyperventilating. I was like, man, I'm having a nervous breakdown. And I'll never forget, I was able to call some very, very close friends. And I was like, hey, 911, family emergency. They're like, hey, man, what's going on? I was like, bro, I said, I'll just tell you when we get there. I think we ended up going to like a Top Golf. And the first thing that one of the homies was like was, who we got to go get? And then it kind of lightened the mood. And I was like, hey, bro, I said, I don't even know about any situations like that, but I just need to talk. And I think that was the actual first time in my life that I opened up about my relationship, because I'm very private when it comes to relationships, but that kind of freed me. So even though it still hurt, I went through that transition, but I will never forget, I found peace. Once I found peace and I knew what that felt like, it was like an addiction, like a drug, and I just wanted more of it. And as I started to relearn myself and get into the right mindset, peace has always been the forefront. So I think to answer the first question, for me, is going to be peace. If somebody doesn't bring me peace, what I perceive as that, I'm good. You can have it.
Well, and to bring this back to dating, I think that's a good point you made, because for me, peace is everything.
Absolutely.
So if I meet a woman, like, it's no secret, I go on a lot of dates, and I tell people all the time, I go on a lot of first dates, but I don't go on a lot of second dates. And it's not that they're bad people. Like, I really don't think. I only had one real bad date. Everything else, they were good dates, and they were good people. It's just I didn't feel that vibe. I didn't feel that connection. And I was concerned. There was a few of them where I was concerned about could I maintain my peace with this person?
Mm-hmm.
Because, when you do go through a relationship, my previous relationship wasn't the greatest. It had good moments, but overall wasn't the greatest. And when you go through something like that, you like, I'm one red flag is like, I'm out of here.
Right,
Like I'm
right.
not doing anything that's going to risk my peace anymore.
Right, but I also think that sometimes we have to give people grace. The biggest thing is communication as well. So if you can't articulate or express yourself, that leaves somebody second guessing, because somebody can be going through something, but if they don't communicate that, you thinking like, oh no, this is a red flag. This person is not attentive, but maybe they just don't know how to say what they need to say, and then you start having these discussions and some thoughtful, heartfelt discussions, and maybe you get something that you need and say, okay, well, cool, I could rock with you, but going forward, you need to do X, Y, Z. Or it's one of those things that they may be throwing you a curveball, and it's like, all right, I see who you are over here, and just remember, don't come spinning the block when you feeling like, hey, it's like this. So yeah.
No, definitely on that. And another thing too is because we do live in a small city.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that's really, really tough is meeting somebody that ain't talked to your homeboys. Like everybody I meet, it's like, I used to date so-and-so, and I'm like, what? And a lot of people actually give me slack for that, because they're like, hey, man, everybody's been with somebody. You got to let that go. But for me, I have a lot of close friendships and relationships in the city.
Right.
People that have had my back. You talked about how when you went through your divorce, you called the homies. Well,
right.
When I went through my divorce, my homies called me. You called me.
Yep.
Drew called me. Bam called me. Tony called. I mean, I had an abundance of friends that were like, hey, man, we got your back. We're here for you.
Right.
Let's meet somewhere. Let's talk. Me and you had many talks about divorce and what we went through and things like that. So if I meet a girl and she's like, I used to date Brandon, I'm like, she's out.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
I can't do that. And it's like everybody in Omaha is dating everybody in Omaha.
Right. So I think to your point, so like with me, again, like I tell you, when it comes to relationships, I'm fairly private. I mean, I could be dating someone, and if I really don't want it to be out there, just because sometimes if people are just in your business, then you already have like that somebody out there like, oh no, I don't like this. I got to get rid of this. But I will say, to your point, if I meet someone or if I know somebody is interested in me and they have any connection, whether you are a close friend or whether like you are an associate or somebody that I would consider a friend, all bets are off, because it's just like, no, at the end of the day, you still had that connection with somebody. I have a connection with them. We're not going to intermingle this. Now, if it's somebody that I just know out and about, I know of them, but yet I really don't hang with them, that's a little different story. I maybe, depending on how this woman is, all right, cool, we could vibe, we could rock out, we could do what we need to do, but outside of that, if I know you, nah, we good.
I agree. I think my problem is, I got a lot of homeboys that are good men. Like, they handsome, they about their business, they on their P's and Q's. So they've had conversations or dates or interests in a lot of different women. And for me, I'm very territorial. So I know I probably need to let some of that go, but I'm very territorial. So I'm not controlling, though. Let me make that clear. I'm not controlling at all. But what I mean is, like, the reason why I'm not out here smashing all these women and even though I go on dates, like, I'm not hooking up with a bunch of people, I'm not doing that, is because when I do meet a woman, I want her to feel like she got something special in me. I don't want her to feel like, man, any woman could have had him, or he talked to everybody, So I want her to know that, hey, listen, you got somebody that was selective and they selected you.
Right.
And I want somebody who's selective and they select me in return.
Right.
So for me, if I'm out, let's say I meet this girl and I bring her to the barbecue, like, hey, bro, we barbecuing, and I know y'all used to talk. Well, I'm over here thinking like, well, dang, am I her second choice? Is she over there looking at Brandon like, man, look at them tight jeans on him and how he thick. I don't want her.
Come on, baby.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying she might be saying that. I'm like, I don't know what's on her mind.
Right.
And I know some people say, hey, you can't worry about that. You got to let that go. But if she never liked you in the first place or never went out with you in the first place, that's not a thought process that I have.
Right.
So I want somebody that's just mine. What do the women say? They say, my man, my man, my man. I want somebody where it's like, hey, this is my woman, my woman, my woman.
And I think by nature, men and women, there's some portion of them that's going to be territorial, depending on what it is. I mean, some women with their kids, some men with their women. So by nature, I think that's fine. and I think when a lot of times, sometimes people like to cross that line. People who are not stand up, or they're always kind of like lurking in the shadows. So I like I look for those things. Even like when I'm talking to a woman, it's like, all right, cool. If you know of somebody that maybe I've talked to, I'm not trying to get into that situation, because the first thing y'all gonna do, or you may do, is jump like, girl, this is and this, and it's like, nah, that you already canceled out, because again, Omaha is so small. So like to your point, just being selective and being intentional on who you select, I think is key, and it's going to be key for any relationship, whether you're starting off new, whether you're in this relationship. You have to be selective and intentional on what you bring to the table and what you're trying to accomplish, maybe what the end goal looks like. So
Let me ask you this, because another thing I get a lot of slack on is I'm very big on I don't holler at women. And everybody's like, oh, but you think they're supposed to come to you? No, I don't. I think I'm supposed to be single until I'm ready to meet a woman that I want to holler at. And the reason why I don't holler at women is it's not because I'm afraid. Like I said, I'm not afraid to talk to anybody. But again, you have to be selective, because if I holler at the wrong woman, in today's world, today's society, you become a group chat conversation. It'd be like, oh, girl, he tried to get with me. And then again, if she says no, and then I go and approach another woman, well, they might be friends, because again, it's a small city. Right. So now it's like, oh, girl, he tried to talk to me. Well, he tried to talk to me too. And so I'm just very selective on who I approach. I did holler at a girl recently. I tried to. She shot me down. But no's happen, and that's cool, because at the end of the day, there's only one person meant for me. In theory, there's only one person meant for me. So all the no's are fine. But again, I'm not worried that she said no. But now my thing is, well, what happens if she has a homegirl that I find attractive and I want to ask her out? I don't think this young lady would do that, but some women would be like, oh, girl, he tried to talk to me.
Right.
And so how do you approach women, or what's your thoughts about approaching women when you see somebody you like?
The thing with me is I'm very, very selective. So if I find somebody attractive, that number one is going to get somebody into the door. And if I do approach this woman, I'm going to hold a conversation. And if I start getting the vibe where it's like, nah, this ain't going to work, I have to trust my instincts, because if I don't and I let it proceed and I'm just like, all right, well, shoot, maybe we just trying to hook up or whatever the case may be. The minute you do that, then you start creating more baggage, and then you've opened up something different that you may not want to get into. So it's been on both ways. I could be out and about. I can see someone. I do a lot of travel. So if I see a woman that's beautiful to me, or somebody that I'm very attractive to, I mean, I could easily go up to them and say, hey, I think you're beautiful, blah, 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 whatever the case may be. We may exchange some type of pleasantries. And then on the flip side, I've seen it to where women have reached out to me, or maybe it's one of those things that it's a close friend that says, man, I got somebody for you. And it's like, man, here you go. No, you don't. And then you just take that chance and just say, all right, well, cool. I can go on a double date. I can go on a date if you're just hooking me up with this person and we talk. And if something comes about, cool. If not, then we go our ways. And it's just another person that I've met that maybe we could be friends, or maybe we just cross paths. So that's how I approach it. I do it from both ways. So I definitely will go approach a woman if I feel like she's worthy of being approachable, or if a woman approaches me, I could be respectful and thankful of that. But sometimes it's like, you may not be my type, and I try to do it the best way that I can without coming off as an asshole. I'm gonna say, hey, you know what? Thank you for the compliment, but at this time, I'm really not looking for anything like that, just to try to be done with that. So
no, I get that 100%. You talked about traveling. I will say I met a girl once that lived in Topeka.
Okay.
Beautiful woman, super dope, good vibe. I went out there, we hung out. Man, it was dope. Like, I think if we lived in the same city, it would have been a go.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, man. That meeting women while you're traveling, it sounds good in theory, but it's so hard to be an adult and do long distance dating.
That's true.
And that was my issue with that young lady, is that, man, I had no red flags. I had nothing bad to say about her. But I also knew that I wasn't about to move.
Right.
I knew that, based on her life, she wasn't in a position to move. So it's like, how do you grow a relationship in different cities when you're an adult? Like, I need somebody that I can touch.
That's true. I will say that the long distance relationships are very, very difficult. Just because depending on the distance as well. So like if it's over an hour or over 2 hours, somebody's got to give. You got to make some type of commitment. And then if you add on, if she has children, you have children, that's even more of a commitment. Sometimes it may be an off day or off week for her, whether you have your kids. So all those different dynamics. But I think if you're really feeling someone, she's feeling you, at some point there has to be some type of compromise if you're going to do it long distance, because the ultimate goal with long distance is for you guys to be together in some capacity. So you have to take that in consideration. But I'm with you. If it is long distance, I will try to stay away from it. I mean, it's always good to have a connection in the city when you touch down. But as far as a relationship, yeah, I would prefer that person to be in the same city that I'm in, because again, being able to just go on a date, just go walk around, do whatever, you know what I'm saying, what it is that couples do, it's very tough to do it unless you travel for work all the time and it's that particular city. You can probably do it, but outside of that, yeah, I'm with you.
Man, listen, I got a part-time job at the airport. I get free flights. I can hop a flight and go see somebody.
True.
And that still ain't good enough.
Okay.
Because, again, I want somebody I can touch. You know, if one thing you brought up, you talked about kids, having kids in the schedules. You know, so I have my youngest, my boys are a little older. They kind of come and go as they please. But my daughter, she's 9. She want her time with her dad. So at the end of the day, for me, the long distance stuff it's just too hard when you're an adult.
That's true. That's true. And I think that long distance, my experience was when I was younger in the military, being freely, you know, your mind is focused, your nose is open, so you focus on this one person and you willing to, you know what I'm saying, wait a little bit, do whatever to make it work until you have these life experiences. You like, nah, I can't do that. I need somebody physically there, like you said, to be able to touch or at least have access to in the same city. So
no, definitely. I know this one thing that about dating that I think is rough, at least on the women's side, from what I hear, all these brothers be trying to smash. You know, and I get it. We all got needs. So
right,
I'm not knocking anybody at all. But how do you navigate, you know, having needs and also, you know, dating somebody and not giving them false ideas if you're not ready for that commitment?
You know, so for me, it's about self-control. I've always been good with self-control. So even though as a man I'm gonna have needs, at the end of the day, it's not having sex is not the end all be all. So like I have other hobbies. I mean, I love working on my classic cars. I love working out. Other things that I do, and that's not my focus. Now I will say, if I'm in a relationship with someone, I try to make it an experience for both of us. So obviously, you have the level of intimacy, you have other parts, but that's just a small piece to an actual relationship. I think the problem is a lot of times twofold. Maybe you have some guys that are just nymphos that just have to have it 24/7 and they can't control themselves, or maybe it's somebody who hasn't experienced that and they've gotten a sense of, okay, I like this, and now it's just at the forefront, like that's what they're leading off with. My advice is play it cool, because sometimes if you take down a woman, you open up a door that you may not want to you can't come back from. So
man, we have talked about this several times. And this is why I don't be out here smashing.
Right.
Like I'm not on that. And that's the real reason. It's not because I don't have needs, not because I don't want to, but I say this all the time. I feel like if a woman gives you her body, it's an investment.
Right.
And usually what they want, the return they want on that investment is a relationship.
Right.
It's not always the case. There's some women that can, you know, do things and not have attachments and all that. I get it. But I personally have never experienced that. You know, I don't care how real you keep it with a woman. You can tell her, hey, this is what it is. I'm not looking for that. And she'll be like, you know, hey, I'm cool with that too. But at some point, you're going to get that, we need to talk.
Right.
What are we? You're going to get that
Right.
conversation. And at that point, you have to, my rule was always, you can't smash after that conversation, because
Right.
if you do, y'all go together.
Yeah. I'll go. And a lot of times y'all go together after you smash. She just didn't tell you yet.
Man, facts. Hey, I remember one time my buddy, we were dating homegirls, and she said something about their relationship. He said, relationship? When did we get in a relationship? She said, when I opened my legs for you. And that's what it was. It's like, hey, we together now.
Right.
But for me, and again, you just can't be out here wilding out anyway. There's a lot of, things out here besides babies.
Right.
There's a lot of things you can get that you don't want to have. So again, I'm not here smashing, but my main thing is, there's an old saying. They say, men use love to get sex and women use sex to get love. So at the end of the day, I feel like most women that want to give you their body, that's their investment and they expect a relationship in return. And if you're not willing to give them that relationship, then don't take their body.
And I will say, now this applies to me. The other fellas out there, you're going to do what you do. But for me, if I get intimate with a woman, I really don't have time to juggle multiple women. Number one, you giving off this false sense of hope that, okay, she's just for you. And I mean, quite frankly, it's a two-way street. So if I'm intimate with a woman, I only want to be focused on her from an intimacy perspective. I'm not going to entertain anything else, whether it's being in a marriage, whether it's being in a relationship with someone, because I think just being open and honest about that is cool. Now, at the end of the day, if it stops or a red flag pops up, it's up to that person, male or female, to open your mouth and communicate, to say, hey, listen, this ain't what it is. This is not what I'm really feeling. To end things as best as you possibly can if you're looking at getting into something different. And quite frankly, why would you want to just keep jumping from female to female, or on a female's perspective, dude to dude? Because like, you're chasing something and you haven't sat down and had time to really think like, hey, what am I doing all this for?
No, that's a fact. That's a super fact. And also, another reason why I am not out here smashing everybody is because, at the end of the day, if I am going to be intimate with somebody, I do want it to be a serious relationship. And I know that because of my big age, at my age, I don't have time to date one person and get to know one person for 6 months for it to not work out.
True.
And now I got to start over 6 months again. Now I'm almost 50, because I done spent, 18 months trying to get to know somebody. So for me, I do a lot of dating. And it's because I do a lot of dating, I'm not going to be smashing this girl or that girl and have her thinking, like you said, like we're in this relationship because we're being intimate, knowing that I'm going on a date tomorrow.
Right.
So, for me, it just kind of keeps everything clear. There's no muddy waters. It's not like I'm over here, I'm climbing in your bed and telling you to get out. I got a date tomorrow. So for me, I don't smash because it kind of keeps everything clear.
And see, I think as far as like the speed dating per se, for me, I'm kind of like the opposite. I'm a creature of habit, so I just like consistency. So like if I'm feeling somebody, she's feeling me, we could vibe. Yeah, sometimes unfortunately you may be 6 months, you may be a year, but I look at it as, okay, we still sharing this experience, and maybe ultimately it didn't work out, but you can be in a long-term relationship 10 years and it still not work out. So I'm kind of like, all right, if I'm with someone and it's this person, okay, cool, we're gonna rock. But as far as like dating to get to know folks, there may be like maybe one or two here or there that's like, okay, cool, we had a great time. Maybe there's nothing left, and you go somewhere else. But yeah, but I got partners on both sides who do the speed dating, such as yourself, or multiple dates to try to find the right one. And then people like me who was just like, all right, cool. Well, you know what I'm saying? If we good, we gonna rock. So
right. Yeah. Above all, I will say this: no matter what way you are, there's somebody out there that's gonna accept it. So just be honest.
Absolutely.
The one, and I think that's been the consensus with the women that I've talked to, is they just always appreciate the honesty. I remember I went on a date one time, and she wanted to reschedule it for a different day, and she said, "What about Friday?" And I said, "No, I have a date Friday." And she's like, "Okay, well, we'll just stick with today." So we went on the date, and she said, "I'll be honest with you. I've never had anybody tell me that they couldn't go out with me because they were going out with somebody else." And I said, "Well, how long have we been together?" She said, "What are you talking about? We're not together." I said, "Exactly. So why do I have to lie to you? I'm not going to lie to you. Now, if we're being intimate and things like that, I feel like I do owe you a different level of explanation. Again, if we're not in a committed relationship, that's going to be limited to what I feel, I want to share. But there's a different level than just going on a date. But if we're just going on a date, I'm not about to lie to you. I'm going to keep it real all the way through, because at the end of the day, I don't feel like you can say, I want to find something real. I want a real relationship. I want a happy, healthy, marriage or relationship. And you ain't been keeping it healthy the whole time. Like you've been lying or been deceiving because you want to play this field. And that I don't play that game. Like,
And
I
then
keep it real.
that karma gonna come back on you at some point. So I'm a big believer, even outside of relationships, you get what you give out. If you give out the positiveness, if you give out being honest, you're gonna get that back. Yeah, and then sometimes you get a tough break. You can do all these things, and you like, dang man, why me? I feel like I could never get ahead. But just keeping your faith. Number one, trust the process. Number two, and just go live your life, because a lot of times it's funny. So I'm looking at from a dating perspective. I've seen it to where I've reached out to women. Women have reached out to me, but I think sometimes when you're not looking for a woman and you run into that person, to me that's the best ones, because you have no expectations on anything. You out and about, you like, oh, okay, cool. You get the vibe and y'all go on a date and things are good, and you just keep going from there. You get it organic and naturally. Like that's what I would prefer from a dating perspective.
That's what I had with that first girl. I had it. But it didn't work out. It is what it is.
Right.
Let me ask you this. Everybody's always asking, like, where are the good men or where are the good women? Like, where do you go to meet good people? Like when you're doing it purposely. Again, when it's organic, you're gonna meet them here and there. But and then here's another. Well, let me pivot that real quick. So many women I see on social media have all these standards or rules of engagement. So it's like, don't approach me when I'm at the gym. Don't approach me when I'm with my children. They have all these things. So where is it okay to approach a woman? Like, where do you go meet them at?
I would probably say it could be in various settings. And I think you have to start with what are people's intentions. So just as women can say, oh, don't approach me at a gym, if they see a dude that they really feeling, they're gonna literally purposely put weights beside you and work out in your space, and you have no choice but to say something. And then they're gonna be like, "Oh, I'm offended," or "Oh, what are you doing?" It's like, come on, man, stop playing these games. But for me, it can be anywhere. It can be in any setting. And I think a lot, like with me, if I'm in the mindset of, man, I'm looking to maybe find somebody out and about. I'm at the grocery store. I'm looking. I'm scanning. But if I'm in my mindset to where I'm just living my life and doing what I need to do, and I'm not really looking for anyone, but in the back of my mind, if somebody comes in my life, all right, cool, we could vibe. I think that's the approach that I would prefer. But to your question, I mean, it depends on what you want. Do you want somebody who's in a professional setting? If you do want someone in a professional setting, male or female, maybe you need to start gearing your movements and gearing like your thought process on, okay, well, let me sign up for this conference, or let me just go do XYZ over here because I know there's businessmen and women that are around, and maybe there are going to be some single folks there. If you're looking for a gym rat and you haven't been in the gym for 10 years, you might want to kind of get some things in order with yourself before you start stepping into that arena. So I would probably say, depending on what it is that you want as a person, you need to number one, make sure that, okay, what I'm asking and what I'm seeking, am I giving that as well? Because if the answer is no, then you're never going to find that right connection that's going to be right for you.
No, I agree with that. I'm not approaching a woman at no gym though. It just got so much bad, mojo to it. Like,
True.
People always like, don't leave. When a woman's at a gym, just leave her alone. Now, I'll make eye contact, and if I see her later, I might be like, hey, I remember you from the gym, but I'm not approaching her at the gym at all. I'm not ready for that smoke.
I don't think I've ever approached a woman at a gym. Now, I've gotten some looks and I've given some looks, but I just keep it at that because, again, if that person is in their comfort zone and they're doing their thing, why are you going to go disrupt it? Now, if she sees you and she's feeling you and you working out, trust me, if she wants to be known or she wants to maybe engage with you, it's going to happen.
I will say this too. You said she's going to put weights by you and do all this other stuff. I have always said a woman's, prerequisites for a guy go out the window when she find a guy she likes.
Right.
So she might be like, hey, he needs to be 6 foot tall and make 6 figures a year and all this other stuff. But if she like you and she rock with you, I tell my buddy Tony all the time, like, I don't care what you lack or what your deficiencies are. A woman to make the excuses for you.
Absolutely.
Like if you don't have a good relationship with your kids, which I'm not a part of that, but if a woman likes you, she'll be like, no, the
She gonna
baby
make
mama
every
don't let him.
excuse for you.
Yeah, she'll make all the baby mama not being fair. You know, she'll
Right,
make
right.
all the excuses. If he don't make 6-figure, no, girl, you know, he fell on some hard times, but he's working. He a businessman. You know, she will make the excuses for you if she likes you.
Absolutely.
So again, if you do get the vibe, I'm a vibe guy. So if for me to holler at a woman, I look at the vibe.
Right.
So like I have a lady that I got my eye on now, and we've chatted in the inbox a few times, and my buddies are like, man, go ahead and say something. I said, man, I ain't got the vibe. If I don't get that vibe back, again, I don't want a woman, and I think a lot of women mistake that when I say things like that, where they're like, oh, you want somebody to approach you. I don't want a woman to approach me. And if I'm being honest, I don't think women should approach men like aggressively. Because so like when I first got single, my DMs were going nuts.
Mm-hmm.
Like I got DMs where and I used to show my buddies, I would crop the names out. I wouldn't put nobody on blast because they would think I was lying. Because I'm like, dude, it wasn't like this the last time I was single. But I had women where they would inbox me and be like, hey, can I come by and give you head? And I'm like, no. You know, or hey, if we hang out, do you think we can have sex? You know, things like that. And I'm like, I'm not going to take advantage of that.
Right.
Because if I don't want, if I don't know if I want a relationship with you, I don't want a relationship with you, I'm not going to go there. But a lot of men will not have any interest in you and take it just because it's available.
Right.
So I don't agree. I don't think women, I would never advise my female friends or sisters or, you know, my daughter or anybody, I would never advise them to go and be aggressive. And when it comes to approaching a man, but you got to drop a hint.
Oh, absolutely. And to your point, the energy and the vibe has to be there because she could be the most beautiful woman on planet Earth that in your eyes, and you approach her, but if the attitude is like, why are you here? Or if you could feel the energy, trust that. A lot of times men will look past their feelings or their intuition and say, you know what, she fine, man. All these red flags that you looked at, you still want her. You got to take that because in the long run, what do they say? Choose the woman that's going to choose you.
Hey, that's what I get slack for because I say I like who likes me.
Right.
And they're like, well, no, you can't be like that. I'm like, understand what that means to me. What that means to me is I want somebody that looks at me and they're like, hey, that's my cup of tea.
Absolutely.
You know, hey, that's my flavor. That's my style. That's what I like. You know, I think he's funny. I think he's handsome. You know, and then if you like me and I like you, then we can see how the vibe goes and how we connect. But I don't want to go chase somebody and convince her that I'm a good option for her.
It's never going to work.
Yeah,
it's never going to work.
Especially when you consider yourself or people consider you to be a good man.
Yeah.
Because she may take the option just because you're a good man and she wants to meet a good man. But if she ain't really rocking with you and she ain't really like connected to you and like you like that, it's not gonna work long term.
So it's funny that you say that because, and I'm gonna ask you a question. So I've had it to where somebody spent the block on me that I initially may have approached, and maybe they at the time they were like, oh, well, who is this or who is that? Instead of like stepping out on their faith and maybe getting to know if they were single at the time. Or if they weren't single, just be like, hey, you know what? I'm dating someone. It's not a good time. But if you don't say that or you just leave somebody hanging and then some time has gone past and the next thing you know, you're starting to hear this name in circles and then you start getting curious and maybe you hear that, oh, this guy has this or this guy. And it should never be about things, but people want to jump back and spin the block. It's like, nah, those are the bad intentions, and we want to keep those folks away from you. Have you ever experienced anything like that?
Oh man, I get black spinners all the time. But see, what's funny to me is Omaha's small.
Yeah.
So a lot of times when I get a block spinner, it's usually after they've went and messed with somebody else, and it didn't work out, and then they come back to me like, hey, you know. Just, you know, hey, big head, you know, the whole like,
right.
They just pop up out the blue. But they don't know that I know that you was messing with so-and-so and that it didn't work out. And now that's why you're trying to spin the block. So not only did you talk to the homie,
mm-hmm.
you know, but you gave me the impression that you were out here just working on yourself.
Right.
And you really weren't, which you don't owe me an explanation. So I'm not saying you have to tell me, hey, I'm talking. You don't have to do that. I'm not saying that. But when you spin the block and I know the real reason why, it kind of keeps me at like, oh, I'm cool.
Yeah. And again, it goes back to what I said earlier. Trust your judgment. If you know something doesn't feel right, stop trying to push through the appeal of what somebody looks like. Like, if you truly want to get to know a person, do that. You're going to find out their character. If you ask the right questions, if you go in with proper intentions and you like, all right, cool. If I'm looking for a long-term girlfriend, if I'm looking for a wife, if I'm looking for these certain things, then you need to do your own work on yourself and figure out what it is you're looking for. You're not going to have all the answers, but you got to have some type of bullet points on, like, hey, I've been in these relationships before and I never received this, but I would like X. So if that's a part of it, add that in there when you're talking to these women, or women when you're talking to these men. Do the same thing. You're going to have your list.
And I think what a lot of people don't do, myself included, so I'm better at that this go around, but they don't give it time. I used to tell women all the time, because women be like, man, you're too good to be true. I don't know if I can believe what you say. And I say, hey, listen, don't believe me. Don't believe me. I said, because a man who's authentic and a man who's a player, they're going to say the same things. The only difference is one means it and one's just using game. The only way you're going to tell is with time.
Right.
So I would tell them, I say, don't believe me, just watch me.
And then the actions. I mean, to your point, I mean, people could say I'm the best thing since sliced bread, but if you're not seeing these actions within a certain period of time and it's just the same thing, you're going to have to make a hard choice and ask yourself, okay, is this really this relationship worth being in? Because if it's the same thing that you've seen before and nothing has changed, you're setting yourself up for failure. And maybe the sex, maybe whatever that the money is keeping you around, but it should never be solely about that. It's about the relationship. And if person A is putting in everything and person B is taking everything out, you might want to consider on being single again.
Well, see, I haven't experienced that part because I ain't got no money. So, at the end of the day, they like me because I'm cute and funny. The money is not there. But all jokes aside, all these different scenarios and different things we're talking about, that's why there's piss in the pool.
Right.
That's why it's so hard to really meet somebody that you just vibe and connect with, because there's so many different dynamics that you have to consider and think about. And then not only do you have to think about that, but once you find the person you like, all these things have to align, and then they got to like you back. And then y'all got to be on the same page. And it just seems like that's so hard to do. So how do you stay encouraged when in the dating pool the way it is? Because I'm sure. So let me ask you this. You're divorced.
Yep.
Do you want to get married again?
I'm on the fence with it. I mean, I definitely would like to be at some point in a long-term relationship that potentially would lead to marriage. But since I was married at one point in time, I have to be sure, like, okay, from what I'm seeing, this is definitely going to be the right person. Because the last thing that I want to do is invest time into someone and give them those husband duties and, being who I am. And I do that by nature, only to feel or see like, hey, this person really wasn't for me from the jump. So I will say this. Yes, but I'm not in a rush to go get married. If it happens, cool. If it doesn't happen, I think I would be, as I age, I would be fine with that. You always want some type of companionship, but it just has to be the right fit. And if it's not the right fit, and you see if this person is not truly for you, then I don't want to just have a relationship and we're just sitting around and collecting dust, or you're just basically benefiting off of what I have going on, because I wouldn't do that to that person either.
See, I get asked because I actually been married twice.
Okay.
So I get asked all the time, would you do it again? And initially I said no. But I realized before my healing process that I was saying no out of hurt, because I was hurt about the last marriage and what I went through and what I put up with and didn't put up with and everything that I allowed to happen. I just wasn't who I normally am in that situation. So I was like, no. But when I really sat back and thought about it, and I started doing my therapy and counseling and then real therapy, going to a therapist
Right.
and working through my whatever I was going through, I realized, man, I was a dope husband. Like I was a dope husband. I was a dope father. I enjoyed those aspects of life, and I'm not going to let somebody else deprive me of that. So I do want to be married again. However, like you said, it has to be the right situation.
Right.
I don't have another failed marriage in me.
Right.
In my first marriage, we were just young, just grew apart. I have nothing bad to say about her. We didn't really have a bad marriage. We were just kind of young. So with the second one, I really felt like I found somebody I wanted. That I felt I was doing it the right way, and I thought it was going to be forever, and it wasn't. Um, and like I said, at the end of the day, it really wasn't a good marriage. So from both of those experiences, I really would like to kind of combine the two. That might be a bad way to say it, but to where what I mean is to where I find somebody that I really like, I really care about, that I want to be married to, and but also the aspects of the first one where we had a good marriage, we had a good connection, and really have a happily ever after. For my third marriage, that sounds so bad to even say third marriage.
So just to piggyback off of that, so as far as me getting married again, I think the peace has to be at the forefront.
Definitely.
So if I see someone or if I'm dating someone and they're bringing peace to me, I think ultimately, yes, I can be married to that person because we're on that same shit of music. And yes, no relationship is perfect. You're going to have ups, you're going to have downs and everything in between. But constant communication, if there's any type of issue, you have a resolve. If you have that resolve and you move past that, and then you're both bringing each other peace. And then the other thing that people don't realize is having your individual space. So even though you guys will be one, if she allows you to have your space and your time, you allow her to have her space and her time, but you always make time for each other. I think that's the healthy relationship ultimately that you would want to go for. And if it ends in a marriage, I would say that's a successful marriage or you're heading down the right path. And tuning out the outside noise, because a lot of times you have social media, you have family in your ear, you have all these different elements of people that see happiness, and maybe because they're miserable, they want to take away from your happiness so y'all can be in the same boat. And I see it out with people excelling in life. I see it with people that have great relationships. When you start letting the outside noise dictate to what it is that your marriage is or what you do from a career perspective, then you don't have control of that, and it's not going to work. At some point, it's like a little chink in the armor. It's going to keep getting time after time. It's going to keep getting chink, and then the next thing you know, it's going to break. And now everybody's in your business, or what you guys once had that was sacred, it's not there anymore.
I agree with that. And the main reason I asked about if you want to be married again is because I think that's the first step to dating, is realizing what is your end goal? What do you want out of this?
Right.
Not everybody wants to be married, but I've met a lot of women where that's the first question out their mouth is, hey, I know you've been married before. Do you want to be married again? Because I'm looking for marriage. And it's not a turnoff to me, but I think it's important that they understand that, yes, I do want to be married again, but it's going to take a while to get there. Like I have it because I have like a 2-year minimum mandatory to where we got to be dating in a serious committed relationship and everything's all good for a minimum of 2 years before we even discuss marriage.
Right.
Because again, I don't have another failed one in me. So I gotta kind of, play my cards right in that regard. But I also tell people that's the reason why I do a lot of dating, because to me, like a date doesn't really mean anything. A date means I'm trying to see if I could be interested in you. Now, if I'm interested in you, then we can become a relationship or a couple. And to me, a couple doesn't mean that. So I had a public relationship on Facebook, and beautiful woman, great person. I have nothing bad to say about her. She's a good woman. Nothing bad to say about her at all. But I had a lot of people that were like, man, I'm sorry y'all broke up. I thought y'all were going to get married. And I'm saying, well, where'd you get that from? Like, I never said anything about marriage on Facebook or about our posts or anything like that. She's a good woman. We had a good relationship. We had a good time. And they're like, well, I just assumed that it would be, that you guys were headed that way. But I'm saying, no, because y'all were together. And I said, to me, when I date, I'm dating for data. I'm dating for information. I'm dating to learn who you are, to see if I could be interested in you. Now, if I'm interested in you, then we can have a committed relationship. But to me, what that means is that it's just me and you now. Now I'm getting to know you without the outside noise of everybody else. It doesn't mean I'm in love and we're about to get married. It doesn't mean any of that. It means I'm trying to see if I can be in love and if we can get married and go further.
Right.
So then, that would be the next step, would be engagement, marriage, all the other things. But to me, that's what a committed relationship is at this stage of my life. It's me trying to see if we can go to the next level.
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head. A committed relationship. That's something that has to be communicated early on when you start catching the feelings and you have to express yourself. Both men and women need to do that. Sometimes I know I would have a problem. Like I just kind of go with the flow and maybe I don't open my mouth and say, hey, it needs to be X, Y, Z, but just being more intentional and say, hey, you know what? I do care about you and I would like to see where this goes. But how are you feeling with this? Because my feelings, like you said, doesn't necessarily equate to her feelings, but you guys have to level set. You have to be on the same sheet of music to be able to move forward. Because again, a relationship is with two folks, not one person with 1 foot in and one person with everything but 2 feet in. You guys have to constantly level set, communicate. And I'm not saying it to the point to where you're being annoying, like, oh, well, are we getting married? Or, oh, like, what are we? And you're just constantly doing it. You got to catch the vibe too. And yes, it's going to be some uncomfortable moments at times to where you're like, hey, this is how I feel. Are you feeling the same way? And if she comes back and says, well, yeah, I'm feeling that same way. All right, cool. Well, you just keep going what you're doing. And now you also have to pay attention to actions. When when you're used to a certain normal relationship or things going a certain way, and things start getting pulled back, or maybe there's something that you raising your eyebrow on, don't just let that brew. Men and women, don't let that brew. Take some time to yourself, gather your thoughts, but you need to convey that to your partner or your potential partner, because that's going to be big. Because if you let that slide and you don't address it, then you're assuming and they're assuming, oh, we're good. Regardless if that person, something else in their life has happened, the assumption is what's going to end up ultimately maybe starting something that you don't want to finish. So I would highly suggest that communication piece, being able to meet at the table somewhere in the center, constantly do that. And again, try not to be annoying, but it's definitely going to be needed if you're going to have some type of serious relationship that leads to marriage.
Let me ask you this, because you talked about communication, and that's always a potential mistake in relationships, is how you communicate. What do you think are some of the biggest mistakes that keep women single out here dating?
Oof. I would probably say one of the big things is if they have experienced something in the past that they didn't like or they don't want to be a part of anymore. So like if it was detriment to their previous relationship and they don't do the self-work themselves to get past whatever, I guess the buzzword now is the trauma or whatever case may be. If they're not doing the work and actively trying their best to be able to forgive or trust in a certain light, I think if a good guy comes along who maybe this is what they want, but in the back of their mind, they're like, oh no, I think maybe he's going to do such and such again because of my last relationship, then I think that's where they miss out on. And I think the other piece that they may miss out on is just being realistic. So if you have your eyes set on a certain type of guy, he has to be the 6'2", he has to make $2 million a year, all these different attributes, sometimes you're going to keep waiting and waiting and waiting because you're looking for a unicorn. And if you're looking for a unicorn, he may pop up. It may be that one time you cross paths with this person, but he might not be feeling you. So you just spent all this time prepping and waiting for this unicorn who's going to be your savior, and he ain't even feeling you. And he picked somebody who is more authentic. He picked somebody who for whatever his needs are. So I would probably say, I'm not saying lower your standards, but I am saying sometimes you may want to check and see what your budget can afford.
Message. That was a message right there. What your budget can afford. And for me, I go along with that and say, I think it's about standards. I'm all for standards. You have to have standards. You cannot just be, accept anything that comes to you, whether it's a good man or not, a handsome man. Like I said, I told you I slid in a woman's DMs and she was like, no. Well, I feel like I'm a handsome guy. I feel like I got a good job. I'm a good father. I'm a good man, but I wasn't the man that she was interested in.
Right.
So I didn't meet whatever and that's perfectly fine. So I'm cool with that. And I got standards too, to where certain women don't, meet my standards in my areas. But I think you have to be realistic about your standards, and you cannot let social media dictate your standards. So social media has said 6 foot, 6 figures, all these other things. Well, man, you might be okay with a brother that's just gonna go half with the bills. You might be fine. You might be fine with getting. I don't want to say getting help, because you don't want to get in a relationship for help, but having a man that's gonna help. Having a man that you care about, that y'all vibe with, y'all click with, and he helps. He helps pick up the kids. He helps cook some dinner. He helps cut the grass. You might be okay with that kind of man, but you let society get into your head and tell you, nope, he got to be 6 foot, make 6 figures, have a 6-pack. I put a post up recently where I said, you want a man who's 6 foot, with making 6 figures with a 6-pack. Those are demonic numbers. That's the devil. And then you mad because he over here cheating and doing all this crazy stuff.
Right.
But it's true. I saw another podcast where a guy said, if you want a man making 6 figures, only a certain percentage of men in the world make that in the U.S. And then now you have to find a man who makes that, and he's 6 foot. So now there's only a certain percentage of men that's 6 foot. Now he has to make that be 6 foot and be single. So now there's only a certain percentage of men who doing that. Now he has to be 6 foot, make 6 figures, have a 6-pack, be single, and be interested in you.
Right.
So by the time you're done, all the women are fighting for 2% of the available men out there. And this 2% of men have all the options available to them. So a lot of those men aren't ready to settle down. They're having fun.
Right.
So I think that's a thing that women really need to look at. Like, I always advise my friends to have a list of preferences versus non-negotiables.
Right.
So your preference may be 6 foot. Your preference may be 6 figure. But what are your non-negotiables? Those things, they can be, but they should never be your non-negotiables.
And I think, to your point, some of those things are going to be the superficial aspects of life. And yes, people want the most beautiful or the most handsome person in their eyes. Some folks don't really care. But a lot of people in the social media realm, this is what they're really pushing. What they're not talking about is, how is this person's character?
Facts.
How is this person
Message?
how is this person with his parents? How is this person with his kids, if he does have kids? Because you get a sense of how somebody is and how they may care for someone, and that gives you, without saying anything, you can see it and you can feel it. So you're actually in real time, you're taking in that data that you're talking about, and you can see it, and you're like, okay, this is tangible. I can touch that. I can see exactly how he moves in the room. I can see exactly how she moves in a room amongst people when I'm just in the back, playing my position. So if people start taking those attributes, kind of put them to the side and look at what's the quality aspect of somebody, because that is who looks gonna fade. Facts. We all gonna get old at some point in time. Now you got some foxes out there that look good, that are handsome, that are the
for their
age, but that has an expiration date. So when the beautifulness wears off, the handsomeness wears off, it's just you two. And what are you willing to accept? What is it that you would like that's going to make your quality of life be that much more better?
Well, and there's a interview I saw once where this man said, "You show me the most beautiful woman in the world, and I'll show you a man who's tired of sleeping with her." So at the time, at the end of the day, even if her beauty doesn't fade yet, eventually you get used to that.
Right.
And eventually those little nuances that they do throughout the day that irritate you make them look a whole lot less attractive as time goes on. So you have to really be in tune with that person's character and who they are.
They used to say, you know what I'm saying, beauty, you can't take beauty to pay for the bills. It's a lie now, because you got OnlyFans and you got everything else. So they getting the bills paid. But when you get past all of that, to me speaking as a real man, that peace, that comfort that I get from a woman is unmatched. Like, if I had a choice, if I had what people perceived as a dime piece, a supermodel, somebody who's just gorgeous, drop dead, beautiful, whatever the case may be, and somebody who was a 7 or an 8, but they had character, they had these tangible qualities about them, and they still look good, appealing to me, I'm gonna choose the 7 or the 8 all the time. And I hate using numbers because it's subjective, but just to give you this illustration, I'm gonna take this person who's perceived as a 7 or 8 because of the peace that she brings, the quality of life that I believe that I would have with this person if I'm moving into that direction, past the dating, getting engaged, and now being married to this person, somebody I can spend my life with. That's what I want, because the beauty just walking around the house is like, you might be giving me some headaches. And then guess what? I got to worry about all the dudes that you allowing to see your OnlyFans or whatever you got going on. I got to worry about them. I shouldn't have to do that in my own house.
Man, I'm gonna tell you, my mama told me, and it stuck with me my whole life. She said, "Beautiful women come a dime a dozen. Beautiful people don't."
That's true.
You know, so make sure you find a beautiful person and not just a beautiful woman.
That's a fact.
Now, what about the fellas? Like, what do you think? A lot of what are some of the mistakes fellas are making that are keeping them single?
Man, you know, first and foremost, man, sometimes we thinking with the wrong head.
Man,
I think that's
hold on.
Message.
So I think if you get past that, honesty, because we can see the beauty. That's the first thing that we're gonna see. Me like, oh man, in your head, man, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, man. I could be walking around and she gonna be on my shoulder looking like this, but that's all fine and dandy. But again, it goes back to the question that we asked the women: what qualities do you want in a woman? Like I would prefer, like I cook, so if a woman can't really cook, but she can be in the kitchen with me and add, cool. I would love for a woman to cook, but I know I provide a certain thing. I'm self-sufficient on my own, and I'm not saying that I don't need a woman, but I don't need anybody to come in my home to add negativity. So, and if that is in the form of a woman on some other stuff, nah, I can maintain what I have going. But I would probably say just guys, just like I said, thinking with the wrong head, or thinking that you have, I don't know, this woman that everybody wants to, you know what I'm saying, desire after. Like, nah, keep that at bay. Figure it out what it is that the qualities that you're looking for in a wife. Because if that's the ultimate goal, you have to, and if you don't know, that's fine, but take some time. Get out of the game for a little bit to take some time to know, this is what I think love feels like. This is what I think a good woman is. Write these qualities down and have these in the back of your mind, so then when you step back into the dating game, these are the questions that you're leading off to. Obviously, you're not reading them verbatim, and you pose them in a way where it's probing questions. You may ask a lady like, hey, what do your goals look like in the next 5 years as far as like you? And if she's sitting up here saying, oh, well, you know, looking to have a come up, or I'm looking to do this, looking to do that, maybe she's not for you if that doesn't align with what you got going on. So make sure that your values align with the women that you're seeking out, and I think you'll be in a better place. And yeah, you're going to have some hits, you're going to have some misses, but stay true to yourself throughout all of that.
No, that's super facts. Now, you say don't do them verbatim. I verbatim have 54 questions and I'm always adding to them. I know it's 54 because I was counting them yesterday when I was talking to somebody. But I have 54 questions that are related to dating that I believe makes a person have to expand and be deep, have some depth to their answers. And it really gives me an idea of who they are. So I'm all for the questions.
So it sounds like you need to have a questionnaire app for women who want to date you. They got to fill this out before.
No, they ain't got to have. There's no app. They don't have to fill that out. And I don't just sit there and be like, what do you like in a man? You know, I work them. I work them in the conversation where it feels natural. But I do have questions that I need answers to.
Oh, no,
because
I
want to see where your mind is at, where your mind frame is at. For me, men. And I say this all the time, we are visual creatures, you know. So when we see a woman that's beautiful, we're like, oh man, you know, I gotta have her.
That's the one.
Man, that's the one. You know, or that's the next one. You know, because some guys ain't ready to settle down, so it's the next one for them. But my advice to a man who really wants to have a serious, happy, healthy relationship is close your eyes sometimes. You know what I mean is, you can't just look at the beauty of a woman and think, I have to have her, and put yourself in a situation and where you're going after her solely based on her beauty, and you end up in a bad situation. You know, so at the end of the day, to me, Stop meeting women and thinking every woman that's beautiful has to be a woman that you sleep with or a
True.
woman that you get to know on an intimate level. You know, take sex out of the equation when you're deciding on who you want to date. And I think most of the women these guys mess with, they wouldn't even talk to.
Keep in mind the audience. So what Jason is saying is, if you are truly seeking out true love, if you're seeking out engagement, long-term relationship, a marriage, this is what you need to do. You're going to have it on both sides. On the flip side, dudes who's just out here just trying to smash, women who out here who's just trying to smash. This ain't for them. This is for the folks who are truly trying to get some food for thought on how to develop and cultivate meaningful conversations so you know who was who.
Right. This is for the people who are trying to avoid the piss in the pool.
Absolutely.
The people that are out here just doing their thing, a lot of them are the piss in the pool.
Right.
You know, they're the ones that's muddying the waters because most of those people don't keep it real. Because I know men that will be straight up with a woman and be like, hey, this is what I'm looking for. This is what it is. I don't want no relationship. And, they let the woman take it or leave it. I know many more men who play the game. And it's more about, kind of stringing her along and getting what he wants out of it. And to me, you're the one that's making it hard for all the rest of us out here because have your fun, do whatever you want to do, but don't damage people.
Right.
And that's my big thing. Don't leave people damaged. Like, I don't think I would like to believe that I've never left a relationship to where the person wasn't better. And hopefully I was better also, from being with them. But I never intentionally left people damaged. And I feel like when you're out here playing a game and you're not being honest, again, if all you want is sex, then put that out there. But when you're not being honest and you're playing a game, you leaving people damaged, and then that makes it harder for the next person. Like how you said, women need to let go of, basically what you said was women need to let go of some of their past hurts because now you're viewing this man through these tainted lenses, and it's affecting how you move with him. Well, these past hurts are coming from these dudes that are running this game.
Right.
Just like men's past hurts are coming from, women running game because women run a game too.
And I think also we have to take in consideration it's not a negative hit on a man or a woman if you've had past failed relationships that were detrimental to your health, detrimental to your environment that you probably should not have been in, but some people have them. The thing is, what are you learning from it? And then are you moving accordingly the way that you want to move? Because then you'll have, on the flip side, you'll have men and you'll have women out here who will constantly get in these type of relationships, getting into these relationships, but then you've had 4 or 5 of these relationships, so now you're kind of labeled as a certain type of person, but then something happens or one of your homegirls is getting married or several of your homegirls is getting married, now you want that, but you're wanting it for the wrong reasons. It's the same thing with dudes. If you want a relationship for the wrong reasons, then again, you're part of the piss in the pool. You have to take a step back and you have to really evaluate what is it that you want. But if you had 1 or 2 of those and you're learning from it, it's going to take some time. Sometimes you can jump in and things work out the way that they work out. But in a lot of times you can go through these or experience these type of relationships, but you got to take that time to yourself. So like you said, going to seek out a true therapist, not somebody who is just, I have a business and come holler at me. It's one of those things where going to do the work, whatever that looks like for you, and then you move forward and move accordingly.
And let me say this, because our people are big on spirituality. Not just your pastor.
Right.
You can talk to your pastor. I would never tell somebody not to talk to their pastor. And your pastor may have great insight and have biblical knowledge and be able to tell you things from a spiritual level, but that doesn't negate the need for a actual therapist.
Right.
Therapists have tools and training that they can pass on to you to give you to help you look at yourself in a different light. And they don't fix you, but they can help give you tools to help you fix yourself. So I'm very big on therapy, getting help, being better. And I think ultimately, if we all focused on being better within ourselves, then we would be better at dating and meeting other people.
I think that's the key. And to your point, you have to find an objective party, somebody who's not tied to you. And it's good to break it off into sections. If you are spiritual or very religious, yeah, you may try to seek out spirituality, the fruit or the food from that perspective. If you have a good core group of friends, definitely say what you need to say from there. But then from a professional perspective, they don't have anything to do with your family, your friends, anything like that. So they're going to give you the best sound advice, judgment that you need to do, but you have to be willing to do the work, and then you bring it back, and hopefully your village they're going to basically hold you up and hold you accountable from what you're learning in your sessions with your therapist or whomever you seek out.
Right. And sometimes it's just about getting a different perspective.
Right.
So I know that when I talk to you, you're going to give me a perspective, right? But I'm not going to take that and say, okay, I'm running with it. No, I might talk to my boy Bam, who's going to give me a different way to look at it. I might talk to my boy Tony, who's going to give me a different way to look at it. I might talk to my pastor, who's going to give me a different way. Then my therapist, who's going to give me a different way. Sometimes, it's about collectively, having this collective circle that can help you heal and be whole. Again, it's you doing the work, but sometimes these different points of views can really help you. So again, I'm very big on therapy.
1,000%. One of my best friends, my brother, Aaron, he lives out of state, but he's older than me. So I look at him as my older brother, and he's experienced, from a relationship perspective, he didn't experience everything. So there are times where maybe I'm not well versed on something, and I'm like, hey, bro, man, I'm going through boom, boom, boom. But he's always going to keep it real. Regardless of how he moves or he does his thing, he breaks it down to where, hey, this is what this situation is. This is what I'm seeing. These may be some options that you can look at. But again, the thing that we always go back to is, she bringing you peace? Is she bringing you happiness? Because if those aren't the two things at the forefront, and this is just for me, what were we doing this for?
I agree. Well, I think we've been going on and on for a minute here.
For sure.
I think we're going to cut this off. But before we do, what's your last piece of advice for people out there in who trying to navigate the piss in the pool in the dating world?
I would probably say trust your gut, because obviously if you know you better than you, look for signs. Please do not overlook any type of red flags that are, and not just the buzzword red flags, but if you have a set of standards or things that you're looking for in a relationship, don't overlook that, and don't compromise that for somebody who you think is appealing for that specific time, because they may be there for a good time but not a long time.
Good advice. And for me, I say, hey, just be authentically you. I feel like if you just do things with the right intention, like when I do things, I try to move with the right intention. I don't always get it right, but I try to have the right intention. I feel like if you do things with the right intention, then good will always come to you.
Right.
So just be authentic, do things with the right intention, and know what you want. You have to know what you want. You can't get to a destination unless you know the end goal. So know your end goal, and then you'll figure out how to get there.
Right.
But other than that, man, we want to thank you for tuning in. There's definitely going to be a lot more topics on dating, because it is such a big factor in our life and in our society today. So stay tuned if you want more. If you got some ideas for some topics we can discuss, man, throw them in the comments. Anyway, thank you for tuning in. Y'all have a good one.
Peace.